Welcome. This is Zaza Zooms In. I'm Zaza, and this is the space where I zoom in. What that means effectively is I'm just going to be having conversations with friends and we'll be talking about any and every topic. In this episode, I caught up with my longtime friend Chinwe, and we spoke about teenage daughters. Yes, this is what we had to say. Hey Chin.
Hey.
Today we're going to talk about daughters.
Teenagers.
Teenage daughters.
Yes.
You have one.
I do. I have an 18-year-old. She just turned 18.
Going on 42.
Going on 60. Good. She's surely older than me. So, yeah, I do have an 18-year-old, Alex.
I have a 17-year-old. Mm-hmm. I also have a 10-year-old. Mm-hmm. We'll leave the 10-year-old now. Although, 17-year-old.
10-year-old is my goddaughter.
Yeah, your goddaughter. Oh my God, this is going to cause so much trouble.
My goddaughter, Jojo. Yeah.
But do you find, because you see, I think we grew up together. Mm-hmm. I know it's a different time. I know it's different. Everything is different. But I feel like our teenagers now, I don't know. I don't know. It's like I find myself having to pick my battles, and I actually let her get away with quite a lot, just because I don't want, because it's almost like it's a completely different generation, the way they think.
It is a different generation, and also I think things have changed. Like every 2-3 years, things keep changing and evolving, and so obviously, like the other kids, not just these ones, we raise them in a different way. And now we're almost, they're not bad or horrible, but we're kind of suffering the consequences of how.
So when you say we raised them in a different way, what do you mean?
We raised them to be, we wanted to, we're very open, very flat. We wanted to know everything about them.
We didn't do like
we didn't do where the parents were the children. Yeah. And having said that, even African and, your typical Nigerian parents, or, what we call typical, which we mean strict and, even now they are also, everyone is very flat with raising these kids. And what happens is later on, like now, they ask all the questions, the what, the why, they're inquisitive, they're smart.
But I think that's a good thing. You think that's a bad thing?
It's a good thing, but sometimes I want you to just do it because I told you to.
Yeah, you want to do it because I said
yes, exactly. But because they don't really need us for information. Yeah. Before we had the encyclopedias. In fact, I was telling one of my kids the other day, but I remember the line of encyclopedias.
They didn't know what it was.
They didn't know what it was. So I'm like, wait, what? And so we had our parents, like if we had an issue, we would ask our parents for information. Yeah. We would check the encyclopedia. They don't really need us to find out a lot of information. Mm-hmm. They need us possibly for our experiences, which they find are like dated and they don't work for today anyway. So even if you give them your experience, they're like, that was then. But so I rambled on. But these teenage daughters, they're very different from the teenage sons.
I think one of my biggest challenges I'm even going to forget about sons now because I think some things overlap. But specifically with my daughter, is she comes out with words, and I think we touched on this in the last thing, where she would say something like, "Oh, do you think he's going to rape me?" Or they just use words, and I feel like they don't understand it. The way they use words now is so casual that the meaning and the impact of that whole word, they don't get it
They're
at all.
overloaded with information. So, and they can't they also, look, these kids are they're amazing, right? But some of the processes that they're not able to go through affect a lot of even what they say. Like this thing of you saying, my daughter had that. She said it was something about rape. And I said, they had intercourse. And she said, no, he raped her. And I'm like, oh my God, this can put someone in jail.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information, and sometimes they just don't understand.
So what I've realized is what I've realized in parenting, I'm sure you realize, you have to parent each child differently. Mm-hmm. Where I grew up thinking that, they're all the same school, parent them all the same way, but you can't because they're individuals. And what I found with my teenage daughter is that.
But we weren't parented like that.
No, we weren't.
We were parented all together because we're all very similar.
But I don't know, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because I think
it's just a different thing.
We're lucky. I think because we were okay, but I think if you had a child that was particularly sensitive or parents didn't like that, they might have suffered from
exactly.
it. But the one, we were okay because we were okay. So maybe there are some children that are.
We also took a lot of hard knocks, and we got through them. I mean, we were not told that we were wonderful and fantastic and great. We might have been, but
that resilience thing,
absolutely.
I think. And it's this whole thing, mental health. It comes back to this whole mental health thing where there's such a big, and I am 100% for mental health. But I think sometimes, or mental well-being, but I think sometimes we take it to the point where we don't even allow them to have the knocks that will give them the resilience that they need, that will build them up how they need to build them.
I mean, if you think of, you have a child that's 5 years old and maybe they failed, well, maybe they're not tested 5, but, they failed at something. Maybe they came last at a race in school and then they have the award for last place. All these things, and you're like, no.
Well, like, my husband got really upset because in primary school, the infants, they didn't compete, as in, it wasn't, while it was Liberty, it was like, what sort of, what stage is this? Who is the winner? Who is the winner? You know what I mean? Like, somebody else.
Look, when we play, what do we play?
Badminton. Oh,
yes.
my God.
I didn't want to say it. When we play it, he's, it's not a game until we're competing, until someone is taking score. So it's just how we're built like that. You really don't feel like anything really makes sense unless we're competing against something else or someone else or something like that.
So, okay, a couple of things. I was going to say something else, but first one, I wanted to pull you up on competing against someone else, because one of the things I've always said to my children is be your best version of yourself. Compete against yourself. So I just wanted to focus on that's not what you meant.
Of course.
But also, the other thing is that, so because what I found with my daughter is that her brother said to her the other day, he said, you just continue doing this because I can get away with murder now.
Oh my gosh.
Because, basically it's like, what you're doing, you're actually pushing the boundaries so far that they don't even notice what I'm up to.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But it's almost, and he said to me one day, a couple of years ago, he said, if I had done this, you would have killed me. Like, what is going on?
Well, also, you had more time.
But it's also the male-female thing as well.
Yeah.
So, I'm much more careful because, with girls, although I don't like to, I firmly believe that we can be and do what we want and, that sort of thing. But we are literally more vulnerable than men. Whether people don't like to admit that, they say, but we are. So I'm more, if she calls me and she asks me for £1, I will transfer it immediately. If she calls me and asks for £1, I'm like, what do you want
for what? Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Because
like, she must not be without money.
Yeah, she can't be without money. You don't want her to feel like she doesn't have money, and you don't you don't want her to be vulnerable to anything. You don't want her to think, okay, well, I can't get it from you,
so let
me find out where else I can get it. Yeah. So you don't want that, and that's just
so I think that the things like that I've done a lot. So my parenting with her has been completely different.
It is,
because I'm almost against what I would want to do, but just because I just feel like, so I've had to really adjust my parenting with her. And I think
I find with Alex, it's such a thin line, because I feel like I don't want her to ever shut any doors on me. So I have to be open enough to be able to receive the information she gives me. Yeah. So
keep
that
a straight face.
Yes, exactly, and not just lose it. So that she keeps giving me that information. So I always want to be that mother that she can come to with even her friends' problems, and her friends can come to me as well. But sometimes, I had an experience, I'm not going to go into it, with my son, where I'm like, okay, this is a bit too close. Like, this is,
I don't need this information.
Hide, I beg.
But do you think, okay, using that experience, I know what that experience was, but using that experience, if it had been Alex, would you have wanted that to be happening?
Yes.
Wanted to know?
So we're also a bit, so I guess without knowing it, we can be quite sexist.
Yeah.
Because there are things that, I don't know, unfortunately, call me what you like. The boys get away with some things that Alex, she just can't do it. It's not possible. So I think you take ownership in a different way with your daughters than you do with your sons. And at the end of the day, look, one of our fears or issues is, okay, we want you to do things in the traditional way that we've always known it to be done. We wouldn't mind if you, maybe finish school and then you met a nice guy and you got married and then had children. Of course, it doesn't work that way.
Yes.
And there's no good or bad way. That's just the way we would like it to be. But sometimes we don't want it, like different items to jump the queue.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's what we look out for our girls. And you kind of feel like with the boys or the young men, the other mother should be looking out. You look out for your daughter. And if it so happens, because the truth is that a guy can walk away from a situation and be single again in 10 minutes. You know, for a woman, it's not the same way. So I think my rules for my daughter are slightly different. Even though I still speak the same things to the boys. Yeah. Because you don't want, I don't want my son to be, you know, anyone's mess. Yeah. You know, I don't want to create a mess for any young lady.
Yeah, and I think so I think basically in parenting you have your standard, like I always say to my kids, I'm like, because that's how we do it in this house.
Exactly.
So you have your standard that applies to all of them, but then you have to amend to feature each child.
And then you bring in the Christianity part of it, and then it really gets fuzzy. You know, because, you know, you are now, like I liked what, I was speaking to Roke the other day, and she said, your sister, and she said, don't let me be this, like, because, you know, the kids question you a lot. They're like, oh, wait, what were you doing? And I'm like, okay, don't let me be the standard. God is the standard. Let the Bible be. This is what we're looking at, not, you know, so that's another issue. But
I think, but I actually think that that's so key, because I think, unfortunately, a lot of Christians don't tell the truth to their kids about what they did.
No, they
because
don't.
For that very reason,
exactly.
They say, well, you did it, why can't I do it? And I think that that's where the authenticity is lacking. And if you don't have, the whole thing about Christianity for me has to be an authenticity. Absolutely. So if you cannot be authentic about, I mean, you have to be age appropriate, obviously. Yes, not everything you're going to tell every child. But you have to be age appropriate. But if you don't have that authenticity, you're always going to, so you're like, I did this, but thank God, God has saved me, or whatever. You have to.
And in any relationship, really, I mean, Alex has asked me some really tough questions that I've had to pause a minute and think, look, do I just lie outright, you know, or do I tell her, look, this, and I've honestly always chosen to tell her the truth. And sometimes you get a bit of distance for a couple of days because she's like, wait, what? You know that, and then you get back to it and then she realizes that, okay, yes, she actually did tell me the truth, and this is what we're doing, you know. So
yeah, okay. So I guess the key thing is
be authentic.
Be authentic. Christ at the center, for us as Christians.
Yes.
And you know, I think that thing, that does something else, because that Christ at the center also helps you to know how to, you know, like, I'll give you an example. So Moroti, my 17-year-old, has allergies. Now, one of my other children is very sensitive. So I remember there was a situation where I was more lenient on him than I would have been on any of the others. And one of them picked me up on it and was like, why would you do that? And I said, okay, the same way that if I give Moroti milk, it will probably nearly kill her.
Yes, exactly.
If I responded to him the way I respond to you,
that's
it will probably nearly kill you. Know,
that's actually quite good.
I'm actually like, you have to use
different recipes for different.
Exactly. So I was like, with other things I will do, you know, we have our standard baseline.
And that's true, because, you know, I get that. I'm sure you get that a lot. I get that a lot with my 3 children. You know, oh, you let this one do that. How come she can say that? Yeah. It's all the time. And that's a very good answer actually to give. That,
and you said the other thing is I always have to say, I'm like, he's 5 years older.
I know.
He's 5 years older. I mean, he can do that.
Yes,
you
it
can't.
Does make a difference.
You know, because they don't, and there's that anyway, it's a whole different conversation. Maybe we'll have that conversation.
Maybe that's too. Exactly.
So, but thank you very much. It's been great chatting with you.
It's nice being here. Love talking to you.
Can we finish this cake?
Yeah, we should.
We didn't want to chew on camera.
I know. Thanks.
This is coconut and sesame seed cake. I'm telling you.
It's such an interesting combination, but it works so well.
Teenage daughters are just the most amazing thing. I frankly think that women are the best things in sliced bread. But as a woman bringing up a woman, sometimes it can be tough. It's tough because we've been there.
and we know the mistakes we made, and we kind of don't want our children to make those mistakes. We don't want our daughters to be in a vulnerable situation. We don't want them to have to experience things that they don't have to experience. The problem with that is that a lot of daughters are not going to have that. They want to live their life. They want to experience their experiences. And we as mothers just have to be there to catch them when they fall, to support them, and to just kind of guide them. And it's very interesting what Chinwe said, because a lot of the time when we're trying to do that and we're trying to be honest and authentic, they're throwing it back in our face, because they're like, well, if you did this, why can't I? So it's a journey. I always remind myself that I was the one that was chosen to be her mother. Therefore, I have it in me, whatever it is that she needs from a mother. So I just have to dig deep and find what it is, because I trust that God chose me specifically to be the mother of those specific two girls, just like he chose Chinwe to be Alex's mother. So yeah, we've got what we need, and we just need to dig deep and find it and be there to support our girls. God bless you.